Welcome back to another episode of TVGP's Game Club. This month, starting out 2024, we're playing Thirsty Suitors. I'm your host, Boston, playing this on the PlayStation 5, joined as always by Moonpeer.
Howdy, Xbox Series X, Game Pass for the win!
And Musum.
Xbox Series X Game Pass as well.
There you go. All right, let's get some details about this game out of the way here at the beginning. Released November 2nd, 2023, published by Annapurna Interactive, developed by Outer Loop Games. It's a studio that I thought I recognized the name of, and they also developed Falcon Age, which is a game I didn't play, but that was their first game. Was released on PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Series Console, Switch, and PC. Let's get... We're going to try a little bit of a different format here. We're going to try and describe this game. For those of you that aren't playing along with us or are here for the hot spoilers coming later, and try and describe this very straightforward game here in Thirsty Suitors, which is a South Asian command RPG skateboarding dating thing.
Quick time event.
Don't forget
cooking.
Rhythm.
Yep, quick time against. Yes, rhythm.
Rhythm game too.
Cooking. Yep. So it's got a little bit of everything. So super. You get it, right? Yeah. Everyone at home. Yeah, you get it. You're good.
Before you do break that down, for the schlubs at home like myself, what is a command action game, please?
Command RPG is if you think of kind of your standard RPGs like old school Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest games, where people are lined up on one side, enemies are lined up on the other. You pick fight or action or items or run away.
Summon.
Things like that.
Always the correct move is summon.
Yes, yeah, summon. This game has summons, which is really great. Yeah.
So
that's
the traditional one. What's the command version?
No, those are command RPGs. Command RPGs are you're picking items from it. It's not it's the opposite of like an action RPG where your commands, your inputs are like one-to-one, or if you think of like the like the Final Fantasy VII remake where you're mashing square and he does //. This is more like I'm picking attack, I'm picking items, things like that. So normally called JRPG, but not all command RPGs are made in Japan, so it's a little bit of a different genre.
So, out of curiosity, is there a particular breakdown for the Paper Mario style, like this one, where it has the button prompts that allow you to enhance the attack or whatever? Is there like an additional like category of that, or is that just still fall under command RPGs?
I think it's still a command RPG, just with the modifier of timing-based QTEs, like the like Sea of Stars, like Super Mario RPG, like stuff like that. So, which is a good point because most, if not all, of your non-basic attacks in this game have some level of direct input.
Everything you do.
That's fair. Literally everything you do, down to washing your hands. Let's move to time travel here real quick. Metacritic has it at an 80. OpenCritic has it at a 79. Appears through the release date of November 2023. Blasphemous 2. RoboCop Rogue City. Star Ocean Second Story R. The Talos Principle 2, Bluey, the video game, and Persona 5 Tactica. Got a little bit of everything for everybody.
A little bit.
Yeah. We'll ask the question we ask every month. Was this game top of the pile, middle of the pack, or overlooked?
For my circles, this was middle of the road. Because I had some people talking about it, but not a whole lot.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
As I say, this is a weird place because we talked about playing this in November, I guess, when it came out then. I had not heard of it beforehand. And I don't think I heard any buzz among my friends about it. So,
yeah, it's interesting because for me, I think I agree it's middle of the pack. I think it's thematically similar to Venba, that also we played last year and came out last year. But Venba seems to have captured more of the attention for both of these games. So, which
Mhm.
is interesting. All right, before we get into the game itself, spoilers. It's spoiler time. Here be the spoilers. If you want to play along with our next game, if you're going to tap out now, our next game is Steamworld Build. We're going to play that for the next month. That's on PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Series Console, Switch, and PC. It is currently available on Game Pass. So you can check that out. Spoilers. Heading into the game itself. Let's talk here about Thirsty Suitors. Suitors. Who? Either one of you want to jump on in here? Put your shoes on your hands and jump on in here.
I can
I hate
start,
you for that.
but it's going to be a display of the amount of confusion that I've had while trying to like harness my opinion for this game. Like,
Okay.
Let me just extract one word from what you just said there. Confusion. That is a perfect word to describe how I feel about this game too.
Mm.
Like
not the game, but how I feel about the game.
Yeah.
Like, you know, in game dev story where you'd hire a writer and they'd come up with something, and you'd hire another guy and you'd choose your genres,
Right.
and sometimes at the end they'd be like, yeah, that didn't really work out. You chose two disparate things.
A trained detective game that will never work.
Yeah. I think this game has that problem. Like, I think overall I really like it, but quick time events are a mechanic I absolutely despise. Is its uphill battle with me partially, and the other part is like I don't think all the bits and pieces gelled together. Like, I don't like the skating and the cooking and the quick time events in the battles. Like, I think to me the core of this game is the writing in the battles. Like, I think those were all done real well. I think most of the quick time events in the battles, like, I could pretty consistently do and whatnot. But in like cooking, occasionally be like, here, you have a split second for this one, and then all the rest are going to be really slow, and you're like, what is happening? And it was it's a very odd gel, because I ended up enjoying the story by the end of it. Like, during the beginning and middle, I kept going back and forth because it's attempting to talk about some pretty heavy topics. And I think it has to simplify a lot of those topics to do that. And at the beginning, I was not convinced they were going to stick. I was not convinced that was what they were actually doing.
Right.
So that probably just tells you about nothing. And
no, I'm in the same boat too, because like I think it's a fairly competent game. I think when you look at a lot of the individual systems, I think the cooking stuff is pretty interesting. Like, you trying to gain favor with a person who knows how to cook this dish intimately, and you trying to learn from them and to do it correctly, not having the background. I think the skating feels pretty good, but I don't want to do that at all. I'm thankful that the game, at every time the game is like, hey man, you have a skating challenge to do, but these are optional. I was like, okay, circle, bye. Like, I'm not, I don't want to do any of these. I wish there was more from like a design perspective. I wish there was a little bit clearer feedback at the beginning of the game on the QuickTime events, because when you have to smash square to like fill up a circle, when the circle completes, there's still a little piece missing at the end. It doesn't fill up and then disappear. So I always kept thinking I was missing it, but it would pop up and say super. I was like, oh, okay, I guess that's great. And I wish that there was maybe a little bit more constant feedback about when you have to like flick a stick or push a button or something. There's, for anyone that didn't play it, there's going to be a circle on screen that has the direction or the button you're supposed to push, and then there's another circle that's closing in on the circle that has the button in it. I wish it would have been a little bit clearer about when the circle that's closing in hits the outer edge of that button, that's when you push it. not when the circle is inside of the closing circles inside of the other button. That's how you get supers.
So what's frustrating to me is in the dance challenges, it seemed like for me to get the star, like, okay, so when you're playing the game, for the audience, whenever you do a dance challenge, there are 5 stars, and your goal is to fill up those stars.
It's like a Guitar Hero and Rock Band, like how you're slowly filling up the the rating stars.
Well, and I would not get the star pieces unless I waited till it was inside the circle, which was a little mad because I thought I was supposed to hit the edge, and it just never quite made sense. I don't know that they really did much of any feedback with this system. Like the first hour or two of this game, so I'm playing with an Xbox Elite 2 controller, and I'm trying to do, they have a bunch of stick quick time events where you have to turn it in a circle, or you have to go right or left or up or down. And the way I had done in previously games is I would push the stick over and lift my thumb up, and then it would bounce back, and then I'd put my thumb down again. But the problem with this game is when I did that, evidently the stick vibrates a tiny bit, so it would automatically make me fail my next move.
Sure.
It was super frustrating those first 2 hours. Like I was like, I may just bail on this game. And then I finally figured out if I just kept my thumb down, I could prevent the vibration and move forward. And that took some learning.
Yeah, I liked all of that stuff in the game. I thought the voice acting is good. I thought the writing is good. I think the mystery was fine. My biggest criticism of this game is a personal one, where, if you didn't know, Musum and I do a show about RPGs every month. It's a genre that we love very dearly. I really don't like RPGs that so heavily rely on you having to apply a debuff to an enemy or a status effect to an enemy to then be able to do damage.
Hold on a minute. Yeah. Don't you love the Persona games? Isn't that entirely
I do, and that is a one of the problems with Persona, which thankfully you can kind of get around by chaining attacks. I think the benefit of Persona, which I think isn't reflected here in Thirsty Suitors. So if anyone hasn't played the more modern Persona games or some of the more modern Shin Megami Tensei games, those games usually have a very similar system where you're figuring out the puzzle of what is this enemy weak to, and then once you do, and you hit them with the weakness, typically you can either get another attack on top of that, so you're kind of encouraged to exploit that weakness, or in some games you can chain those, so you're sort of like getting 5 or 6 attacks sort of back to back if you play your cards right. My frustration with Thirsty Suitors is your basic attack does nearly nothing. And
the only thing it does is give you willpower back.
Right. And even the amount that it gives you back is pretty small, especially as the game goes on. And I thought it was frustrating not knowing from a battle-to-battle standpoint what these enemies were going to be weak to. Because that's like, in the Persona games, you're constantly building up this compendium of, I selected this enemy. Oh, it's weak to X, Y, or Z. You don't really have that in this game. So you're kind of like throwing stuff out, which to me, the frustration compounded with the QTEs. So like you're just like, oh, well, maybe I can make them thirsty. Oh no, they're immune to that. Okay, I guess I know that now. So like, once you made one of those effects stick, then you could actually do damage, because instead of you doing like 12 damage with your main attack, now you're doing 130 damage with a special attack that matches the status effect they have. That to me is really frustrating. I that grates on me a lot of like, especially, I don't mind that as much in boss battles because that makes a little bit more sense. But even just like fighting normal dudes
Regular
on the
folks.
street is just sort of like I should be able to just kind of do my
Steamroll.
normal attack here, man. Like that. This shouldn't be this whole thing. So I found that
Also,
probably the most frustrating part.
Health and willpower don't regenerate after a fight, which is the thing that annoyed me the most.
Yeah, like I get what they were going for because they really wanted you to skate around town and pick up the like health and willpower pickups, but I didn't want
time for that.
Like I didn't want to do that because I'm typically going from point A to point B. Like I'm in the middle of something, and I tried to pick up this gift to get. It always says like gift or grift, and it's always grift.
So I've got gift like 5 times. Thank you.
Okay, there you go. That's 5 more times than I did.
You get the 50 fights achievement.
No, that's the only one I'm missing, and I'm at like so. Post game, like credit where it's due. Post game, they do a hey, everything is still the same, or everything is done with. You finished your story. Go explore, cook, do whatever you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to replay the last fights, you can go to this location and do so.
Right. That was nice.
But it just dumps you in the world. Post everything. None of this reloading the checkpoint before the final boss kind of nonsense that you get. But it's like, no, it's post game. Everything's fine. So I'm currently in the world doing that, and I've got like 5 more fights to do. If it wasn't for the fact that I fell asleep on the couch in my wonderful blankets, I would have had it before I came here.
Yeah.
Like all the problems Boston's talking about too make the fights way longer than they need to be. Like some of the boss fights are really frustrating. In particular, there's a side mission with one of the character's sisters where she's invulnerable for several rounds at the beginning. And you just
the conversation one where I'm like, why is she suddenly invulnerable? Oh, I need to pick the right conversation. Okay.
The final boss is the same thing, though. The final boss is several stages followed by basically have a conversation section.
Mm-hmm.
I do like that they take the status effects and like they flip them to do with the style and the content of the game. It's not they're paralyzed or they're weak or they're whatever.
They're poisoned.
It's none of that stuff. It is thirsty, impressed, heartbroken. It's all of the things associated with the actual content of the game, which I think is a good thing.
I love the eyes when they're shocked. Just
I was
wide cartoon eyes.
gonna say the weird 3D graffiti thing that goes over them every time.
It's very good.
Is the heartbroken that has the purple tears that are just coming out the side of everyone's face?
That one's really like serious conversations happening in the game with these like anime waterfall tears. It's very good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What are you gonna say? There you go.
I was just gonna say I really enjoyed the concept behind the fights in that you were having this conversation with do what?
The fighting was just a nightmare.
Yeah. But you're having this great conversation that is basically your character and your suitor or your ex's id, which I guess it is the storyline for those that haven't played. Is this is kind of a Scott Pilgrim situation, except that you aren't trying to date anyone. You just abandoned everyone you knew for a few years and came home, or a year, however long it was. I thought it was 3 years, and then one of the characters said
I thought it was 3 years.
Yeah, I think it's 3.
Okay. Towards the end, I thought someone said a year. Or no, it was the potty, whatever I know I said that wrong. The grandmother.
The grandmother.
Right.
She, I thought she said like a year sabbatical, and I thought, did they intentionally write that wrong, or have I been mishearing the whole game?
Jala was saying that she was between. She wanted to take another year off before she went back to school.
So I think what it is with that is I think she's referring to a year sabbatical because that's what her mother has her daughter has told her that her granddaughter is doing.
Yeah.
Because Jala left and like, from what I understand, was in college for 2 years, then dropped out because that's what Jennifer wanted.
Right.
Like I feel like this game's entire problem is they tried to put too many things in when they really should have just concentrated on the RPG battles and made the cooking an RPG battle and make the battle more cohesive. And it'd be fine if you could skate around, but maybe don't worry about making like a skate park sim, you know? Just make it, that's the animation your character has as they move around, and maybe you have some fun, like, traversal things to get to odd areas to collect something.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and go ahead.
I think that pretty much sums up how I feel about the game as a whole. Is I think there is too much of everything in there.
Yeah.
And when I say that, I'm talking about like if you, like you said, we've got the cooking mini games, the dancing mini games, the RPG battles. There's a lot of this stuff in there for every single aspect of their life. Could have chopped out a couple of those. And then the main storyline itself. I hate Jala with a passion.
So for listeners, that's the main character, the lady you're playing.
That's who
as.
you play, yes.
Yeah.
Who you are coming back to town after 3 years not being there to try and redeem yourself and make some form of closure for everyone in this town, apparently, who you have annoyed, destroyed,
You've crossed everybody in this town, including Tyler, your best friend.
She's Miley Cyrus song in a human form. Like, she literally comes in, destroys people, and leaves. Like, that is what she does. And I'm sorry.
She is Jolene.
That's right.
Yes. There's the two different backgrounds right there. I reference Wrecking Ball. He references Jolene.
Right.
I'm pretty sure. I don't know. That may not have been the Dolly Parton song Miley randomly covered on video one day, but I think it might have been.
Was, yeah.
Oh, it is. It 100% is. We did it for Critical Misses season, covers season.
Covers.
Y'all should go check out that too, by the way, if you're listening to this. But it's who is that bad? Like, don't get me wrong.
Scott Pilgrim.
I know
that bad.
That's my point.
Yeah.
Like, I know there are evil people out there. I know there are absolute redacted, can't say it on this podcast, people out there who are genuinely evil to the core. But they will find their little crowd of people who share their same opinions, and then they'll have a happy little life, not thinking that they're doing anything wrong. Jala and Scott Pilgrim don't have that. They have people telling them they are a-holes and they are being stupid, evil, terrible people. And they still continue to be stupid, evil, terrible people. Don't get me wrong. I was a child and a teenager once too. I was never this evil.
Well, and part of the thing with stories like this is that you're supposed to get the catharsis of the making amends and explaining, like, why I did what I did, etc. And you don't get enough time with each one of Jala's exes to have that entire thing. You have a little bit of a conversation of like, hey, I'm mad that you left, or you smooched someone behind my back and that they were bullying me. That's bad. You have a boss battle with them where, like you said, you're kind of fighting their id, and then at the end of that, they're like,
you made good.
Yeah, we're fine.
3 years without talking in a single conversation, and a little bit of hand slapping, and everything's fine. Like, go away.
Right, and like the only person that doesn't apply to is Tyler, which makes sense because there's a more complicated history there.
So that's the thing. I think the two most interesting stories in this game is Jala's relationship with Tyler, who is the on-again, off-again star of the show. It's the two cover stars for those of you who've seen the poster or the game cover.
Yep.
And Jala's family relationship, especially when the grandmother comes in, but you're also introducing a grandmother as the final boss, spoilers, who you only have heard about 4 times throughout the entire course of the game. Like,
this like looming black cloud coming from overseas.
Like, I think if that fight with the grandmother was the mother, I think that is a much more interesting fight.
Right.
Because it still deals with the whole generational trauma thing, and you can bring the grandmother into it as a source of that. But I think if that's Jala fighting her mother, like, about her sister, I think that is a much more interesting conversation to be had, rather than, like you said, the thunderstorm on the horizon that when it finally gets there, you deal with it and it's done.
I do like that when you summon your mom in to fight your grandma, the attack is a hug. Like you're getting some not closure, but like there's a little bit of this kind of generational issues is starting to be smoothed over in the beginning minor ways.
Did you summon? Sorry to interrupt me. I will pass the baton back to you, but I have to ask on the summoning mom front. Did either of you guys summon mom in the Tyler fight?
Oh yeah.
Oh no, I didn't.
So when you summon mom in the Tyler fight, she has like a nice conversation with Tyler, and they go this. That's it. No attacks, no damage, no nothing. They
great.
have a nice little conversation like, "How you doing? I'm good. How about you? Well, good." And then that's
just
it.
Wander
Nothing
off. That's
happens.
really good.
Like apologies, Musum.
So counterpoint to several things. I don't think Jala's evil. I think she was a teenager.
Yes.
And I think they have done a pretty good job of painting a picture, but you don't get to see the picture till the end, which is kind of the frustrating thing, of this ecosystem that created a situation of a bunch of teens, particularly Jala, not understanding her emotions or getting in touch with herself or anything like that. Like most of her exes were in between Tyler. And Tyler was evidently controlling at several points. And I also like one thing that was kind of triggering for me about Jala was like I don't have an imaginary person in my head that I've visualized to be my brother insulting me, but I dealt with that most of my life, like constantly having a voice in my head berating me and finding ways that whoever was talking to me was not actually in my favor or whatnot.
Right.
Yeah,
so
I still fight with that. So I 100% know where you're coming from on that front.
Like it's there. And while like it's funny at the beginning of the game, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna go for Tyler since that's the childhood friend. But once they unpacked everything that happened during the Tyler fight, I was like, these two can never be together again.
This cannot happen.
Tyler clearly needs his space and boundaries, which he got. And I don't think any of the exes behaved in healthy manners when Jala came back, and I don't think there was any good Jala can do when she came back. Like obviously, like the person she ran off with, Jennifer, was a massive issue, and evidently there was some trauma there they didn't really get into.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I think there's a lot of. I think they do a really good job at making it not a black and white scenario. Well,
Oh yeah, there's definitely idiots on all sides. One might say.
Like, while I wish the grandmother had been introduced earlier, I like them unpacking a lot of that because the mother was so ridiculously toxic. Like at the beginning of the game, I was really thinking I was not going to enjoy the writing because I thought it was going to be them presenting themselves as this enlightened, emotional, like writing thing while still being horribly negative and toxic to their main character and within the family and to the friends. And the fact that at the end, the resolutions weren't necessarily like you're defeated, but actual like healing, like what's a path towards healing, I appreciated that. And I don't know, maybe you can get Jala to hook up with one of her exes, but she did not in mine. She just became friends with all of them.
Ditto.
I did not want anything to do with anybody.
None of you. Y'all got to work on yourselves.
Everyone goes their separate ways and figures out their own stuff. Like, everyone is too damaged in their own specific ways. I did like the throwaway nature of Bruno. I'm not gonna lie. Shows up, gets in a fight, leaves town. Like that's literally what he did.
He just ghosts again. Everyone's like, "Bro, again for real?"
Did you catch the letter he left on the dining when you were in the diner at the very end of the game? And everyone's sitting at the tables and you can have a conversation with everybody. If you go to the very back table, there's an empty table and it's just got a letter from him saying, "I miss you. I'm in California. Kisses."
That's great.
It's just like, dude, come on.
Man. Oh man. I enjoyed also like when you fight Tyler, he summons the other exes, but it's his really shallow interpretations of them.
She, by the way.
Or she. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That was a brain fart.
Oh, I mean that's one
good.
interesting thing they do in the game is that they're part of the history between Jala and Tyler is the transition where the game is like I stuck with Tyler through their transition through
transition
all
process,
this
yes.
this stuff like that made us so much closer in a way that it has been hard for us to separate from each other for 400 different reasons. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
I do like the fact that everybody in here is their own specific kind of themselves. Like you have. Okay, I'm gonna say something that's gonna get me cancelled probably here. Yay for me. Okay. Representation matters. 100%, no arguments there. And I love the representation in this game.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of representation in this tiny little town is probably a little unrealistic. But guess what? I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's an unrealistic representation of a tiny little town with what feels like 40 people living in it. Because, hey, everyone is represented, and I'm fine with that. If you're going to come at me for that, I don't care. You can. I don't just
stop
don't
listening
care.
to the show if you're in comment with a Caddis about that.
Yeah. So I love the fact that like you've got they, them, he, her, he, him, she, her. The transition, the whole spectrum is covered.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that everyone feels unique when it comes to the X's.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think I could do without the fight and the everything else. You could do that in a story sequence rather than a big fight. But I like the fact that everyone's got their own unique, like Musum said, their own id in the fight is what you see of their core personality. The guy who was the vet, I can't remember his name now, but whose cat turns into like a He-Man tiger in the middle of the fight. Yes, like,
and
he's
I like
fantastic.
I like him saying like, I'm soft. I like being soft. That doesn't make me a bad person. Like, stop making fun of me for being kind. And I was like, yeah, man, get him.
And you know exactly why his younger sister is so hard is because she's probably grown up listening to him getting ridiculed for being so soft.
Right.
So he is so soft, and she has turned into the harder version of like, oh, I'm going to protect my brother now because you're all a bunch of D-bags.
Right.
Well, it's the whole thing is like situations that at least I have kind of seen in some form or another in my life.
Yeah.
Like,
particularly
like, Jala, we've all known that couple in high school who keep getting together and breaking up and getting together and breaking up
every
like,
other day.
Are you guys trying? Like the Irfan and his sister, like, of course that situation's going to happen where two people date and their younger sibling looks up to the person.
Yeah.
And then they break up, and then that sibling has to resolve their feelings somehow,
Right.
I don't know. I love a lot of it. I just all of it needs more polish, and it needs less mechanics to apply that polish. And granted, I know like them cutting down on mechanical systems does not automatically produce a video game writer to help, but man, I don't know. This is definitely a mixed bag that I don't know if I can recommend to people, but I really, I think in the end appreciated and enjoyed what it did, despite my absolute loathing of going through its QuickTime events.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, so I will say, like, credit where it's due as well. They do have an accessibility setting in there where you can literally just have the QuickTime events complete themselves.
That's very nice.
I know that because I'm in the middle of doing 50 battles and I don't want to deal with that. So therefore I turn them all on. And the difficulty slide settings are pretty solid too. They go from like normal to story, so there is, and that actually dictates how much you need to care about the status effects and things like that too.
Right.
So like right now I have it on story difficulty with the QuickTime events all doing themselves just so I can get this 50 battles done with. But they have a lot of options in there, I think. But I think taking that out also takes out part of the game that they've kind of put together. And it's like, I don't know if I would have preferred this as just a straight visual novel.
Right. That's the hard part.
It'd need more writing.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be, you can't take one thing out and just have the game as is. Like, that is definitely not what I am saying. Like, in my mind, like at the beginning when they're thinking up of how to do the game, they say, you know what, this is too much scope creep. How about we use the same battle system between the X's for the cooking? And how about instead of QuickTime events, we just don't do QuickTime events?
Right.
And we balance the system more. Like it's not. I mean, right now the game is what it is.
Right.
There's no changing that. But if they ever, do a sequel or another game of similar intent, like, maybe get rid of one of those systems and just make sure all the other systems really shine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm kind of in this to wrap up my thoughts as well. I'm kind of in the same boat you guys are. Like, I liked most of my time with it, even though there's a lot of frustration. And I'm kind of glad that I played it to kind of get the experience. But it's also another one that I'm not sure I would recommend to everybody. Not in the way that I would kind of readily recommend a bunch of stuff that we've played on this show, but it's an interesting thing. It's definitely, like we talked about at the beginning, it's definitely not like anything else we've played. It has all kind of the elements of things we've played before, but it's not like, oh, here's another skateboarding cooking RPG. Great, here we go. It's definitely not anything that we've seen before, which is nice. And it's part of the reason that I think this show is so fun, where it's like, yeah, let's try this thing, let's see what it is. And yeah, maybe it didn't hit us 100%, but it's cool. It's a cool thing at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So
I think it's an experience. Like, I think like that goes without saying. I think one of the best things about video games as a whole is the breadth of stories that can be told and how you tell them.
Yeah.
I think this is a really good example of another way to tell a story, another way to and specifically, like you said, a South Asian story. Like, there's something. It's funny. It's just like buses. You don't get a South Asian video game for decades, and then two come along at once, and they both happen to be really pretty solid games.
Right.
But like having that there is I think it's a great thing, because it's like, yeah, it might not be for me, but if you listen to the show and you know what we all talk about and what we all like, then you know that you might end up feeling the same way. You might be confused. You might like it more or like it less. But either way, that's something that at least it's there. At least it's out there for people to try. And that's why I love games like this for Game Pass. Because this is a game I would not have looked at twice. If not for this show, if not for Game Pass, I would not have touched this thing.
Yep, 100%.
But because it's there, because it's on Game Pass, it's like, yeah, sure, let's give it a go, see what happens.
Yeah, a couple hours, sure.
I mean, you will probably never play another game that combines these elements.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. All right, well, that's Thirsty Suitors here, starting off 2024. Reminder here, we're going to play Steamworld Build for our next game here for February. It's on PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Series Console, Switch, and PC. Is currently on Game Pass at the time of the recording. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. We'll see you all next month. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.